All right, let's talk Seattle Seahawks. Of course, we're in the thick of mini camps and OTAs. We're starting to see the rookies, the veterans working together, integrated into the coaching staff strategy as we're going to see what the Seahawks team is going to look like in 2025. And there's one rookie who's making all kind of headlines in terms of impressing the coaching staff. Multiple coaches have come out and said wonderful things about this young playmaker. We'll get to all that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Seattle Seahawks made a number of outstanding draft picks, but the one that grabbed the biggest headline was, of course, the selection of quarterback Jalen Milro out of the University of Alabama. Obviously, the Seattle Seahawks moved on from Geno Smith. They brought in Sam Darnold, and Jalen Milro right now, as it currently sits, seems to be the heir apparent to be potentially, in all likelihood, probably the future franchise quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And to that end, he's been impressing the coaching staff with how he's handling himself and the decisions he's making at the quarterback position. Let's pull up these two articles here that have come out recently highlighting the coaches that are very impressed with Milro. This first one is courtesy of Pro Football Network. This is Mike McDonald here. You see the poise, the fundamental stuff that we're asking, footwork and timing and reads, McDonald said, but you don't just do that by showing up every day. You have to be intentional and on record with his work ethic and stuff. That's really impressive. He's earned kind of that feeling of confidence right now. He's earned that feeling going into the summer. So this is Mike McDonald noting that Jalen Milro has put in the time. He's put in the effort. He's looking like a confident quarterback out there. He's understanding the reads and schemes. You don't get that just by showing up. You get it by putting in that extra work ethic and having the right mentality when you're on the practice field. This next report is courtesy of Fansided. This is Clint Kubiak saying the number one thing that stands out, this guy's a worker. You see him in there at 4:30 in the morning on the field going through his plays. Kubiak told Bob Condata of the Seattle Times. Nobody's asking him to do that, but he's out there putting in extra time. Seen him grow a lot from rookie minicamp to now, so been impressed with the kid. So again, Milro putting in the time, having in the work ethic. He appears to be, in terms of head on his shoulders, leadership, mentality, right approach, to be a great selection by the Seattle Seahawks. But when Jalen Milro was drafted and when he was going through the draft evaluation process, the biggest criticisms of him coming out of Alabama was that he regressed from 2023 to 2024. Going into 2023, or after 2023, I should say, a lot of people said, hey, maybe he's a first round kind of guy, early second round. He was a Heisman finalist. I think he finished sixth in the Heisman in 2023. Did a lot of great things. Alabama was a playoff team. Alabama got worse in 2024. And at a high level perspective, Milro's numbers seemed to take a step back. But when you actually take a deep dive into it, he actually played even better in 2024 than he did in 2023 when you look at the numbers that really matter. And we got a few charts here we're going to highlight. Let's pull up the first one right here. And this first one is going to talk about turnover-worthy play percentage and time to throw. This data was collected courtesy of Pro Football Focus, the guys over at PFF. So turnover-worthy play percentage is exactly how it sounds. What percentage of the plays you have at the quarterback position are worthy of a turnover? So these are plays. This could be anything from a fumbled snap to an interception to a dropped interception, right? If you throw a pass that should have been picked off and it gets dropped, you don't get credit for an interception on your stat sheet, even though you probably should have. Turnover-worthy plays factors that in. So you can see going from 2023 in blue to 2024 in red, Milro improved his turnover-worthy play percentage. But here's the very interesting thing. His turnover-worthy play percentage dropped, even though his time to throw significantly dropped. So he had a lot more pressure, had a lot quicker reads. In 2023, his time to throw was about 3.5 seconds. That is bonkers. That is not realistic. If you have a time to throw of 3.5 seconds in the NFL, you're going to get sacked every single time. You can't hold on to the ball that long. You got to keep it below 3 seconds, and that's exactly what Milro transitioned to in 2024. And despite throwing the ball much earlier, having more pressure, having to get rid of it quicker, he actually did a better job in terms of turnover-worthy plays by the percentage that we mentioned on the left side of this chart. So again, just to summarize what you're seeing here, Milro behaved much more like an NFL quarterback in terms of quick release, had to handle himself much differently, and despite that, improved his rate of turnover-worthy play percentage. That's a good sign for Milro. And let's go on to our second chart here to highlight a number of points, because when you talk about pressure, you talk about getting rid of the football and turnover-worthy plays, it's like, well, are you just eating sacks, right? Instead of throwing the ball up for grabs and maybe getting a turnover, are you just taking a lot of sacks? And you can see actually the sacks 2023 to 2024 dropped dramatically. In 2023, he took over 40 sacks. In 2024, it was about 24 sacks when it was all said and done, I believe 23. And his pressure to sack percentage, the amount of times he was pressured that led to a sack, also dropped dramatically as well. So it's not like the reason he got a lot fewer sacks is because his offensive line got significantly better. The reality is Milro had less time to throw the football, and despite having less time to throw the football, fewer turnover worthy plays, fewer sacks. That is NFL quarterback to a T, right? What do we say the great ones always have to do? In the NFL, you're going to be under pressure a lot. You got to get rid of the football, no turnovers, no sacks, give your team a chance. Milro showed that in 2024. We know he's a great athlete. We know he's got a great arm. We know he can run extremely well. But what separates good quarterbacks from great quarterbacks or backups from starters is, can you avoid sacks and avoid turnovers? Those are the things that kill drives, kill games, and kill seasons. And Jalen Milro proved it in 2023 to 2024 that he can take that on and do a great job of that. Everyone in the media and everyone from a high level perspective is focusing on the fact that Jalen Milro somehow regressed going from 2023 to 2024. When you actually look at the data that mattered, he went from a guy that had question marks about being an NFL quarterback to a guy who looks like he's ready to be an NFL quarterback. And when you take this data and then you look at what McDonald and Kubiak are saying, it's very clear the Seattle Seahawks have a special prospect, a special playmaker, probably their future franchise quarterback in this young kid out of Alabama. All right, Miles, I know you got a few thoughts on this, but first, Seahawks fans, in the comment section below, got a really interesting question for you here because this could go a bunch of different ways. Who is your favorite Seattle Seahawks quarterback of all time? Right, recent memory, one guy comes to mind, but you could also go back to the Hasselbeck era. Maybe you're a Jim Zorn guy. Maybe there's someone that I can't even think of right now that you really like and we're a big fan of. Give us your favorite Seahawks quarterback of all time. Put them in the comment section below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on Seattle, Jalen Milro, and just everything going on with the Seahawks right now?
Yeah, Nick, I think this all really kind of fits the narrative of what I've been reading and hearing about Milro at rookie minicamp, at OTAs and things like that as well. It's just this guy is getting better, and he got better from year to year at Alabama. I think he's going to get better from year to year in the NFL. Now, McDonald said, hey, Sam Darnold is our starting quarterback, but he is very impressed with what Jalen Milroe is doing. And I think one guy in particular, Seattle Seahawks reporter Corbin K. Smith, is a local guy, reports on the team, who also works with former quarterback Warren Moon, another reputable source. They had some things to say on Milroe and what they've seen out of him so far. And I think two things they said were very intriguing to me. First off, they talked about, Milroe closed out another strong practice. They're saying he's starting to play with great confidence, though. So I love that already. We're hearing he's getting through everything, getting into further into the offseason program, and he's starting to get more confident in his play this early on. And that sounds really, really good. But to pair with what you talked about as far as Milroe being the guy in there at 4:30 in the morning, which is insane, and already getting reps in, doing things like that, they said this, which I thought was very indicative of just how hard of a worker he was. They said something we've noticed, and I've spoken with Warren Moon about the last week at practice, already seeing marked improvement with Jalen Milroe cleaning up his lower body mechanics. Smith added, he's been throwing a wider base and accuracy improvements have been quite noticeable. So already it seems like Jalen Milroe coming in, trying to, improve his technique, get his base right, get his accuracy, timing, everything like that on point. And that's the kind of stuff we wanted to see from Jalen Milroe. This is a guy who can come in and really, if you have a starting quarterback who's coming in, they're set to start week one, and you already hear him like changing mechanics. It almost reminds me of like the Tim Tebow, like changing his arm, throwing motion, things like that. People didn't like how he threw the football. It makes you a little bit nervous. Like, how much can they get done early on? But when you have time, you have at least this season to really get stuff down. The fact that he's coming in here and saying, I know I'm a good player. I did better from year, 2023 to 2024 at Alabama, but I think I can get even better. So already starting to tweak his fundamentals, already starting to work on the difficult stuff to change, the stuff that he's been engrossed in and kind of had, habits on for a long time now, trying to just make himself overall a better quarterback for the Seahawks team. I think that shows leadership. I think it shows growth. And I think it shows the kind of player the Seahawks are getting in Jalen Milroe. It's little stuff. We're talking about OTAs and minicamp, and that's, all that we can talk about right now. But the little stuff, if you key in on it and see what he's bringing to the table, I think there's something very impressive here underneath it all. The little stuff, getting up early, being there on time, the little stuff, already working on his mechanics, trying to get his base right. That little stuff really speaks volumes about the kind of quarterback the Seattle Seahawks have gotten out of Jalen Milroe.
And you talk about his work ethic. It's important to remember Milro, going back to his days in college, had massive leaps each of his year in terms of what he had to do as a quarterback. So his first significant playing time, he was a backup, but he got thrown into the mix due to some injuries, and he basically was a runner. He was basically a guy that was strictly almost a running option quarterback who could throw if someone was wide open, right? That's how he began his college career, in a backup role for Alabama. Just a freak athlete who could run as good as any running back they had on that team, but had a little bit of an arm to him, right? That's how he started. Going into 2023, he became a great deep ball thrower while still being that great running back. That's essentially what he was. He was not a complex quarterback. He wasn't asked to do a lot of things. Was basically, hey, big play guy at the quarterback position. You got a big arm, crazy good arm talent, and you're a great runner. In 2024, he evolved into a modern NFL quarterback. He still has that great arm talent. He still has incredible running ability, but he had to do a lot more. He had to read defenses in a much more complex way, had to go through checkdowns and progressions, had to read different coverages and react, right? He was in a more complex offense. And that goes to another point, that this is Jalen Milroe's third offense in 3 years, right? He had Nick Saban was his head coach, had his staff in 2023. Kalen DeBoer from the University of Washington. I'm sure Seattle Seahawks fans are at least somewhat familiar with DeBoer. Went down to Tuscaloosa, obviously new offense there. And of course, now Milroe's in the National Football League with Kubiak as a part of McDonald's staff. New offense there, of course. So we're talking about Milroe's third offense in 3 seasons. And despite that, we heard this at Alabama when we were covering Milroe in the Crimson Tide a couple years ago. Everyone just raised and how smart he is, how quickly he picks up the schemes. He progresses and advances as a player, as a quarterback every single season significantly. And I think that's what the coaching staff in Seattle is seeing right now. They're like, whoa, this kid has come in and he's adapting, right? He was 2 years ago, he was a runner with a big arm. 1 year ago, he became a modern NFL quarterback, a draftable quarterback, and now he's becoming a legit quality player in front of our eyes. Now, will it take some time for him to progress into a solid starter? Probably. Will it be all of the season? Will it be sometime during the regular season? Will it be at the end of training camp? Maybe. We don't know. Only time will tell. But it's very clear right now, Jalen Milroe's trajectory is 100% in the positive direction. He will be, based on all these reports and based on his past performance, the future franchise quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And when I think it's all said and done, there's going to be a strong revisionist history about who was the top quarterback in this past NFL draft. There's a lot of people that said Cam Ward's really great. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall? All that kind of conversations. You, of course, had Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart. There's going to be, I think, a lot of revisionist history where people are going to be kicking themselves for passing on Jalen Milroe, because so far he looks like a special guy at that position for Seattle.